Joining me now is Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers. A 2013 national poll found 22% of teachers favored the idea of carrying guns in school. So where do your members stand on the proposal now, would you say?
Well, I actually had a teletown hall with about 60,000 of them. Now, we have 1.7 million members, but about 60,000 were on the call yesterday. And 2-1, everyone thought that arming teachers was a terrible idea, including the gun owners, because the people who are in schools actually understand what that means. And what teachers want is teachers want schools to be safe communities for teaching and learning. And they know that if they're wearing a gun, kids are going to find that to be a deterrent to learning, not something that feels safe. It's going to be something that feels fearful. And so, frankly, what our members want is what the students want, which is, there's a whole lot of things that Australia, Canada, other countries have done to minimize or to eradicate mass shootings. And that includes doing some work on mental health, having school safety resource officers that, if a community decides has guns, although we just saw some breaking news that showed that the school resource officer with a gun who was trained evidently was immobilized that day and didn't do anything. But we also need to have common sense gun violence protection measures that were adopted in Australia, have been adopted in Canada, adopted in New York State, adopted in Connecticut, and in all the places that these measures have been adopted, you have actually seen a reduction of gun violence and a reduction, if not an eradication, of these kind of mass massacres.
The U.S. president talking about this, and I guess arming teachers may look good on paper to some, but I mean, once you peel back the onion, I mean, you might have a kid who darts in front of the shooter, an innocent child who's shot by a teacher. How does that teacher ever talk to that family again? Are they brought up on charges?
Right.
What do the police do when they come and they see people with arms? I mean, it really complicates things more than makes it easier, doesn't it?
I mean, what it does is the only people who would make the suggestion that teachers are armed are people who don't know schools. Now, I know that people feel scared and frustrated right now. And when that happens, you're searching for solutions because you want to keep your kids safe. But even take this. Okay, how would you arm teachers? How would would the kindergarten teacher wear a gun on her holster or on her hip? Would you put it in a locked locker? Would you keep it armed? Would you keep recertifying yourself? What happens when that code red happens? What is your first instinct? Teachers' first instinct are to protect kids. So what do? Do you get the gun out? Do you protect kids? And what happens if you're, God forbid, like Scott Gerber or the coach, and you have this rifle coming at you, shooting so many bullets at that same moment? What do? What happens if kids are in the hallway? What do you do? And that is why teachers have been saying, what, are you crazy? We do not need or want that responsibility. We need to have people who are trained, who know what to do in those situations.
I want to get your thoughts on some tweets that I lifted from teachers in the last few days. Pernille Rip wrote, "I wonder how many teachers have glanced around their classroom and tried to figure out which items they could use as weapons if they needed to." Another teacher weighed in saying, "On top of teaching your children everything they need to know, I'm coming up with battle plans in the event something like this actually happens. I know which items in my room can be used to barricade a door. I'm so happy there's a fire extinguisher in my room." Talk to us about these teachers who don't just have to concentrate on teaching kids. They actually have to think about this now.
This is something that teachers, look, I taught in New York City. We had a couple of situations where kids brought in handguns. Teachers have been thinking about these kinds of things for years. The difference is that now you have AR-15s that have the potential to kill a lot of people in 2 to 3 minutes. Teachers want to protect kids. I want to lift up all of the tweets that you just got. I want to lift up the memories of the teachers in Sandy Hook, the teachers in Broward, because their first instinct is to protect kids. We need to actually get guns out of schools and guns off the streets for the people who should not be having them. That is our job. And frankly, when people keep saying to me, oh, it's not possible. There's a lot of things in this country that were not possible, and we made them possible through the will of the people. And so what teachers are doing is saying, please, we will do our job. We love kids. We'll do all these things. But let's get guns out of schools. Let's not have the focus, as it has been since Columbine, on what happens when an active shooter is there.
Let me ask you one final question, which is the mental health piece. There's been so much talk about the mental health piece. The U.S. president hitting that again the other day, but I don't see it flipped. We're not talking about the mental health of these young kids who undoubtedly are dealing with PTSD. We're not talking about the teachers who had to witness the kids shot to death. So talk to me about that.
So when I say we need, 3 different kinds of buckets of things. One is we need to focus in schools not on the emergency, but we need the mental health services. School nurses, guidance counselors, social workers, they should be attached to schools. There should be funding for that. There's also been a bunch of tweets of people saying, I want to be armed with a social worker. I want to be armed with a guidance counselor. I want to be armed with those kind of interventions that are not the just-in-time emergency interventions. But if this kid, Nicholas Cruz, people knew, kids were telling us in Broward, they knew this kid was troubled. So the school moved it to the state facilities, and the state facilities did virtually nothing, because I would argue they probably had no funding to do anything. So this, and you're absolutely right, that in Broward right now, the kids and the teachers are traumatized. I was there Saturday. You could see every range of emotion. And from people saying, could I have done more? To people saying, oh my God, what is going to happen next? And so we need to help get mental health services into schools. We need to be able to help kids who are falling off that cliff. And we need to be able to get enough common sense safety work done so that the perimeter of schools are safe, just like courthouses, just like airplanes. But the inside of schools are the kind of sanctuaries that, frankly, today, kids need more today, and teachers need more today than they needed on February 13th.
Randi, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you. Thank you.